Welcome back to this week's Conversation with America on Rock Satellite TV. This is a panel discussion of real Americans discussing real world issues, primarily the relationship between Americans and the Muslim people. Our panel is made up of typical American men. Michael and Larry are local businessmen. Daniel Messiah has a fascinating story. He grew up in Egypt, a Muslim. As a young man, Daniel accepted Jesus Christ as his Savior. Following his conversion, he was arrested, tortured, and spent 8 months in Egypt's worst prison simply for sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with his fellow Egyptians. Daniel will be sharing with us the information about Islam and the Muslim people, as well as his conversion. And I would really encourage you to read Daniel's book, which you can find on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or in major bookstores. It's a fascinating, very fascinating read. Now today, well, in the past episodes, we have discussed the differences between Islam and Christianity. For the record, we are all Christians here, and we have been able to learn some fascinating differences between Islam and Christianity from Daniel and from his book. We've talked about God, our relationship with God, God's love, prayer, and how each religion looks at that and perceives that, and as well as our relationship with God. Today we're going to move on to a fascinating subject that is going to encompass all of those subjects there, but we're going to talk about the refugee problem or issue that is not only in the world but as it affects the United States itself. And I would like to really open up with our first discussion, first question. I'm going to ask it for Daniel for his perspective on why so many people are fleeing the Middle East.
As we explained in prior episodes, to live under Islamic Sharia law and Islamic nation, you need to submit to Islam. And if you didn't submit to Islam, which means you need to follow the Quran and practice the Quran and Sharia law, you will be persecuted. And in some Islamic nation, you'll be killed. And now with ISIS, the movement of ISIS, which is a group of people, in fact, their history go back to 1928 in Egypt, when a group of people from Saudi Arabia, Wahhabi denomination or sect, Wahhabi sect from Islam, they went as refugees to Egypt, and they established their Muslim Brotherhood. Now, Muslim Brotherhood is a producer of Al-Qaeda group, which
so
we know.
The Muslim Brotherhood developed into
Al-Qaeda, and now Al-Qaeda changed their shape or name to ISIS. And the word ISIS means Islamic State in Syria and in the whole world.
Okay.
And this group goal is to have Islamic nation all over the world. Or in other words, bring the glory of Islam back.
Now, is that what's referred to as the caliphate?
Yeah, Khalifa, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, you can imagine, we have 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. Now, you energize them, you encourage them, hey guys, let us bring the glory of Islam. And those group of people, ISIS, they start studying the Quran very well, and they start following the Quran.
Okay.
And if anyone follows the Quran, studies the Quran, and wanted to please Allah, will turn to ISIS. And now ISIS group established in Iraq, and they start attacking Christian villages,
right,
and taking a lot of ladies hostage, and in fact abuse them,
Right.
and giving them to the soldier in ISIS for pleasure, to have sexual pleasure.
So under the Quran, the teachings of the Quran,
Uh-huh.
okay, it's okay to take a Christian woman and turn her into a sex slave.
Exactly, as long as it's under jihad,
Okay.
And they killed a lot of men, they killed a lot of kids, and they took most of the women and they sold them in the market in Iraq,
In Iraq.
And get money to support their organization.
Okay.
And now this ISIS group, their goal is to make the whole world submitted to Islam.
So they're in the process of doing that now in the Middle East, in Iraq
Correct.
and Syria.
Right?
They're turning that into an Islamic state governed by the Quran.
Exactly.
Okay. And they're trying to spread that around the rest of the world.
Correct. And
Okay.
even in Syria, the problem is our media here, Aaron,
Uh-huh.
does not tell us the truth. And they covering us. For example, in Syria, when Assad our media here showing Assad, the president of Syria, killing his own people. In fact, he was not killing his own people. He was fighting ISIS.
He was fighting ISIS.
Yeah,
there.
those are ISIS people try to take over Syria and the government and the whole country, And Assad is fighting them and killing them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
You can see how this is such, not as Aaron, you opened this up and said this is a fascinating topic, and it is of interest, but it's a very difficult subject because, as he talked about, there's a degradation as far as how people conduct themselves, and at the end of the day, the people under ISIS want to be under a rule of law called Sharia law.
right?
And we in America are trying to be the good neighbors, and we have our own rule of law that's really built on the Bible. And this is a law built on understanding of the Quran.
Yes. And if ISIS is trying to establish the perfect Islamic state in the Middle East, why are so many Muslims fleeing the Middle East?
Exactly. That's a good question, And this is what all Muslim and American need to ask this question, Eric. Now, the ISIS is following the Quran, right?
Right.
And it's supposed to be, peaceful,
Right?
right? But what happening is those people, when they read the Quran and follow the Quran, they start understanding the Quran that they must kill all infidels and even nominal Muslim are not reading the Quran, Muslim are not going to mosque, consider infidels like Christian and Jew, and they must be killed. And the innocent Muslim, the normal Muslim, the people are not following the Quran, but they are Muslim by birth. They born as a Muslim. When they are not following the Quran, they consider infidels, and they are now under penalty, and the ISIS are killing them too.
So is that who is fleeing? The nominal Muslims?
Christians
is
too are
that
fleeing.
Yeah, and the Christian, of
and
course.
Christians, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But is it the nominal Muslims that are fleeing?
Yeah, from Iraq, from Syria, from all the countries, because ISIS are considering those Muslims are infidels because they are not joining ISIS in jihad, and
Now we have a problem.
yeah, exactly.
Now,
Because-
are some of those ISIS soldiers that are leaving?
You
spread
never
the
know.
faith.
You
don't
never
They
know.
can
know.
infiltrate with
Because part of ISIS agenda is they will use any opportunity to come to America to hurt us. And they know, by the way, and this is not all American knows that, they understand our freedom and they use our freedom for their advantage. For example, they know we can give permission here to build mosques. They built thousands of mosques here. They know freedom of speech.
Yes.
They can go anywhere.
Freedom of religion.
Yeah, and they can spread Islam. They can go even in colleges. While a Jewish professor is speaking, they can stop his speech and attack him under the freedom of speech. You can't do that in Saudi Arabia as an American. If
What would happen to me if I went
they
there?
will take your head off.
Oh,
Yeah, because there is no freedom. Now, Islam, ISIS, they believe if you are not joining them in following the Quran, the teaching of Quran, and Muhammad path, which is, they call it Sunnah. Sunnah in Arabic mean path.
yeah.
If you are not follower of Muhammad's Sunnah, then you are infidel, you are under penalties, they must kill you. Now, all of the Muslims in the Middle East now flee because they didn't like to be like ISIS.
So what do
that
we
creates
do?
That creates a real problem for the rest of the world, including the United States.
Right.
What do we do in that case?
Well, the Bible talks about numerous episodes of people who follow and believe a lie, and as a consequence of following and believing a lie, there is destruction that is associated with it. The lie here today, as far as we as a nation who have helped so many people, and want to go out and help these people, but we are talking about people who say, I am a Muslim, when in fact I don't practice the faith. And we are a nation that says we need to bring out the truth about what is going on. But in this case, this is one aspect of the truth in which it's not being shared. We are under the rule of tolerance, saying we want to allow people to practice this, and we indeed do not mind people coming and having their faith and even being a nominal Muslim. But we cannot defeat an enemy to where the enemy is at war with us, and we turn our heads and say this is a religious matter and it's not a matter of national security. So we are in a real conundrum as a nation of followers who say we want to have a country open to all peoples to come here. At the same time, we are dealing with a faith that says at the end of the day, if you really follow it, you wish to kill those who are willing to help you, and that is impossible to reconcile. One side has got to face the truth. If the ISIS people say that we are the truth, then those people who are stuck in that region have got to yield and say, you're right. We should be against ISIS. We should not be sitting here running from ISIS and then blaming America for not being willing to take us, or blaming Europe for not being willing to take us.
And the problem is, Michael, if those majority of Muslims, the nominal Muslims, stand and say, we are not supporting ISIS, we are against ISIS, guess what will happen?
I know.
ISIS will kill them.
Yeah.
And that's what will happen.
Yeah.
And that's what exactly happening.
What is happening.
And for a long time, the nominal Muslim is kind of ignoring that, saying, I like living how I'm living here in the United States, and so, but it's getting to the point where it's starting to be more and more and more serious. So now half the country is saying, we got to do something. We got to stop
Exactly.
this.
And I agree with Mike in part when he said those majority of nominal, because they are the majority of Muslims.
Okay, yeah.
They need to take a stand here in the United States. At least they are here.
Right.
If those refugees here stand here in America and said we are fleeing from ISIS, we are against them, and this is what they doing, condemn what they do, and they can be used to protect our nation. Because those people, they know Islam, they know the teaching of the Islam, and they know exactly what the Muslim agenda is. But there is a problem here.
They're not doing it.
Exactly.
Okay,
Well-
now go ahead.
Well, and wouldn't you say that there's a time and a point where if the radical Muslim starts to take over, government, positions and so on. There's a point where they're going to say, "You're a Muslim, you have to follow us," and they're going to follow because of fear,
Right.
because of the sword.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if we get to that point, we're in real trouble.
So the driving factor here is fear.
There
Exactly.
is
Oh,
one
without a
more
doubt,
group,
without a
though,
doubt.
that is a part of this equation where the nominal Muslim agrees with the radical Muslim, and that's over the nation of Israel. We have to remember that the whole of the faith of Muslims is predicated on a contention, if you will, in the Bible between the authority and the leadership of Ishmael or the authority and the leadership of Isaac. And so consequently, you have Arabs who are willing, Muslims who are willing to say, I am not for ISIS, but I'm all for the destruction of Israel. And it plays on them to the point where they believe the practice of their faith, in part, is we have got to see the destruction of Israel. And so we'll support that. And the people who are out to support the destruction of Israel or practice it are these very same people who will kill you.
Against us.
So
Against
again-
us.
Against
again,
us.
So we have ISIS taking over the Middle East to build a caliphate with the goal of conquering the entire world through the caliphate. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
because
Okay.
if you look
Okay,
at
we got
Isn't
millions
it
of
starting to
people
happen with England and
Yeah.
nominal?
and
We've got
France? So
yeah.
that there's
Okay, we've got nominal Muslims fleeing, millions of them. We've got the Christians fleeing, and we've got possible ISIS soldiers fleeing with the intent. We have the
on our soil, yeah.
with the
and
intent.
people are
of-
being
of-
converted
of-
here in the U.S.
of
that
converting
are,
us.
That are,
As Americans, how do we deal with this problem?
I'd always start with prayer first.
Start with prayer
and have
Okay.
God lead us to treat people right and do
Right.
things right. But we need to have a structure of laws that were to bring in people that have been vented. That why are they coming here?
Okay, so we're
Because we're a nation that wants to bring people to our country. We've always been that way, and we want to continue to be that. But we can't get to the part where our society is totally ruined. Then nobody benefits.
The reason we are here is, yes, we want to make a distinction and to share this distinction between what it means to be a Muslim as we know it in America and what it means to be an American. At the end of the day, all of us have said the distinction between Christianity and Muslims are these various facets. But we want to have people as Christians because we understand Christians is not just a walk of faith on this land. Christianity is the difference between eternity on one side of the cross and crucifixion and what it represents, and damnation on the other side. And consequently, the only way that these things can be resolved is for people, as Larry said, for those who are believers, who have put their faith in Christ, to practice prayer, and for those who aren't believers, to somehow, by the grace of God, look and see that unless God is at the center of your life, this is not going to work. There is no resolution because the enemy has a free hand, the enemy being that force of evil that influences the Muslims, the radicals, to do what they do. Unless that force is countervened by the grace of God, we are stuck because God uses these.
How do we protect ourselves?
I believe, Aaron, back to Mike points, Israel issue. We need to address this clearly because ISIS are using Israel to unite all Muslims
Right.
Yes.
everywhere,
Right.
with them. They didn't say we wanted even to destroy America, but they use the Israel agenda to gather and unite all Muslim nations together. We need to show the truth about Israel and how this country helping a lot of refugees as we speak. I was in Israel last year, and amazingly, I saw many organizations over there, Jewish organization and Christian organization, are taking those wounded refugees and people from Syria and Jordan and treating them in their hospitals.
So
Okay.
the Jewish people in Israel
Are
the people
helping,
of Israel,
are
they're
helping
helping the Arabs. They're in
right.
Yes, they're exercising God's love
Exactly.
as taught by the Bible.
Yeah, the Muslims are deceived by the propaganda against Israel.
Well, bringing it back,
Daniel,
Yeah.
can I ask you, like, so the Quran, I think most Muslims don't even know what's in the Quran.
Right?
And so there's a lot of false teaching that if you knew what the Quran said, it's totally against.
Yeah, I'm glad he mentioned this. You will not believe it. In the Quran, there is a verse saying Allah is giving the land to Israel.
huh?
Yeah, that's in the Quran.
Right.
Okay,
That's in the Quran.
And the Quran
You know, the
says
land is belong to Israel.
that is Israel's land.
Yeah, it's clearly inheritance to Bani Israel, the Israelite, for the rest of their life.
isn't the Quran also say, or Allah say that use the Bible as the authority?
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's a good point. You know, in the Quran teaching that the Bible is revealed by Allah, by God, and you need to follow the Old Testament and the New Testament. And
So if
in
that's the case, the way I'm seeing this, that if ISIS is trying to establish the perfect Islamic state by studying the Quran,
exactly
they're breaking
the
the
Quran,
laws of the Quran.
right?
Yes.
And
they're
they are in
using
preach
part of the Quran to do their
agenda.
their
And
agenda.
we know those people, you know, they follow the part which they like about the Quran, giving them the power, you know, rape those women, take those slave women, you know, selling them in the market, you know, but they didn't reveal the rest of the Quran. You know, the land is belong to Israel as inheritance, and the Bible and the Old Testament revealed by God, and every Muslim should follow the Bible and the Old Testament.
You know, you almost get the impression that they don't care about what the Quran says about eternity with Allah or without Him. In other words, they just care about what they're doing right now with the opportunity to do this,
Focused on today.
and that what we call sin. In every respect that they can practice it, that's all they want. They don't care about eternity lost.
Yeah, they wanted the power.
Power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they wanted to bring the glory of Islam, you know. Yeah.
As long as it provides them the power.
Yeah, the
That they
power, the
seek.
money,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and the resources.
Power,
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if they controlled the whole world, they would self-destruct themselves.
Yes, yes. So then, how do we protect ourselves here in America? How do we deal with this
As Christians,
as
That's-
Americans or as Christians?
well, first of all, therein lies the distinction. By laws, we would protect ourselves. In other words,
By
we
law.
have laws, and to enforce those laws, we have our greatest sense of secular protection. By faith and prayer and the things that we have talked about, that's how you as an individual have protection.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. We need, because say we are American Christian. What is the American Christian should do? We need to love the Muslim. We need to accept the refugees and helping them, because that's what we're doing.
Do we need to accept all of the refugees?
Yeah, you know. Do you mean the number? They
Yes.
come? No. You know, I think that's the other part Mike was mentioned is as a secular country now, because right now I can't say America is 100% Christian.
Right.
You know, but we have a secular government. Even government does not believe in God. They took God out of the school. There is no celebration, you know, persecuting Christian, you know, and many issues. Our government, we can depend on our government as a Christian. But if they are secular government, then they have all the right to use all the resources here, power, intelligence, even in Middle East and Israel and here, to protect our land, you know.
Donald Trump, who's running for president here in the United States, has said that we should stop allowing Muslims to immigrate to the United States temporarily until our government can figure out what is going on.
You
What do
know,
you think about that? How do you feel about that?
I believe this is harsh statement because we need to think, again, as a Christian, put yourself in those refugees' shoes. People are coming to your home, say a Muslim come to your home, Larry, with a gun and taking your wife, your kids, you know, and you have no power to do anything, except
yeah.
to flee. I mean, if you put yourself living in Middle East,
Okay,
what you will do, you will flee to America.
right?
Now, if I say, Larry, don't come here because there's other ISIS are coming and they wanted to hurt us, it will be not fair to Larry, to stop him from fleeing as a refugees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're saying that don't let refugees in. We're saying we need to make sure that they're refugees that need our help and we want to help them. But if they have the wrong intentions and we can find that out,
Right.
you don't let them. Just like if I said, I want to have someone come to your house and they're a rapist and you have a little daughter, but we want him to live with you, you'd say, well, wait a minute, this guy's got all kinds of records. He's
Right.
raped. You'd say, no.
Yeah,
no,
we
no.
need to do something
see,
with this
right.
kind of
I mean,
people.
if you bring it down to that.
But how do we know that without stopping all of the immigration
Right.
and
And come up
vetting
with some
each
kind of
person
rules, some kind of rules.
that would come?
It's very hard, Larry, and I know to stop. I mean to scan.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
scan
Okay.
people before they come,
Right.
because some of those people, when they come here, they are innocent in the beginning,
Yes.
and they got recruited in our homeland.
I have a son who just married a Japanese girl. The Japanese girl has in the process of becoming an American citizen. She had to be interviewed twice. She's coming from a land in which the rule of law is supreme. You
Yes.
can go there and there is no theft and other problems. So we're dealing with people who are willing to abide by the law, and in that process of abiding by the law, because they treasure what the law has provided in America, they're willing to wait and take their turn and their time according to the law. And so, as Larry said, we have laws in place. We just don't enforce the laws, and it is tragic. But the tragedy is not our doing. We cannot welcome everybody into America. There won't be an America.
The problem also, you dealing with people different than Japanese.
Oh, I was just saying
Exactly.
that here's the
Japanese
Japanese
and-
and saying,
yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
dealing
You know-
again with Mexican people, with Chinese people that are
Right,
coming over in
but
thousands.
Muslim people is
See.
different than even Mexican
oh,
people.
I agree. I
Because
agree.
in the Muslim Quran, it teaches them to lie. He
Yeah.
can tell
So
you.
it's even more deceptive.
It's
You
more
don't know who's
It's
coming.
more-
He can,
reason to slow things down.
When he
Yeah.
come to the interview in the immigration, he can lie. Oh, we love America. We are
Right. We wanna
the whole 90 yard. You can't even scan them, unless you really deal with them in a close relationship.
Right.
You can sense, their motive. And that's why I'm saying it's harder. But I agree, we need to raise our investigation, and
We need to raise our bar.
bar to the
Right.
to the
Right.
highest standard.
highest possible level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Which may be a
Right.
temporary.
yeah,
halt to
maybe
immigration. Yeah.
that's a solution.
Okay.
And let us watch the people already here.
Yeah.
We have
Right.
15 million people.
Let me.
And if I had a city that we say, here's a city, say El Cajon, and it's going to be taken over by, the wrong type of people.
Right.
And in 5 years, there's not going to be no El Cajon. What would you say to that? You'd say, wait a minute.
Yeah,
How do we prevent that? We got to slow down here a little bit and
Right.
have some criteria, because you just can't let it go crazy, because society will just crush. And so how do we do that? I don't have all the answers, but
But
we
let's
need to
look at
we
it
need
from
to have some-
another aspect here. And Sadiq Khan, who is the newly elected mayor of London, is quoted as warning Donald Trump, moderate your stance on Muslims or they will launch more attacks on America. What are your feelings or beliefs around this?
The same as before in terms of if this is what Muslims represent, then this indicates where we are at. They have a gun that they're pointing at us, and this is the mayor of a city that's larger than New York City. I mean, it's unbelievable that that person has been elected by his constituents and represents that kind of view. It underscores what he just said. How do you determine people who are trustworthy and verifiably so, worthy to come to America when in fact they may have the same attentions that this guy has got? If Donald Trump doesn't do what he wants, you could take this to the extreme and he'd say, oh, okay, if Donald Trump isn't going to become president, but he doesn't do what he wants, we're going to go out and do whatever we want to America.
Yeah, we're going to attack America.
That's
ridiculous. I interpret it as a threat.
Right.
Well, it is a threat. There's no doubt.
I agree with him to stop the immigration until we clean our country, and then we can accept more refugees.
That's a partial solution.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not maybe the whole solution, but it's a
But
partial
it's a partial
solution.
solution. Yeah.
That at least we're going to start on a firm ground.
Correct.
And then build and try to more and more to vet how we can bring more people in, because we like to bring more people in.
Right.
Okay.
It seems to me it's just another threat by a Muslim,
Right.
okay, to control what we do.
Right.
And yet they're coming here.
Right. They use the freedoms. They do everything they want.
And everything that we want,
Yeah.
that they want, that we have to offer.
It would be
world.
intriguing to bring a couple of Brits in here from the city of London and so on and say, how are things going these days in England because of Sharia law and other things that are, I mean, they're having a tough time.
Yes, they are.
And
Well, with that, we must wrap up this edition of A Conversation with America. We thank you for watching and hope you will join us next week as we continue this conversation with America. Have a blessed week, and may God bless you.